This is the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. How we doing today on this Monday? This is the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com, the Alabama Crimson Tide on SI. We hope you're having a great day, enjoying your Monday. You're watching us on the BamaCentral YouTube channel, or you're checking us out on my own social media machines at Joe Gaither6 on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. Or you might just be listening to this on your favorite podcast platform on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or on Amazon, the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral. Tell a friend about the show, subscribe, rate, and review, do all those nice things because we love you guys so much. And happy game week it is. Oh my goodness gracious. It is game week in Tuscaloosa finally. We hope you guys enjoyed week 0. We will talk just a little bit about week 0, but we will focus most of our attention on game week. It's Alabama against Western Kentucky. What is it, 6 o'clock in Bryant-Denny Stadium? We hope that you will be there. We will be there at BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com, the Alabama Crimson Tide on SI. Our friend Katie Wyndham will have a lot of our friends, Will Miller, myself, Edwin Stanton, covering the football game. And I cannot wait for it. Okay, so what are we going to do today? First, we're going to tell you about our friends at Purple Turtle Roofing. They're the #1 residential roofing replacement company in the state of Alabama and Mississippi. So if you're listening right across the border in Mississippi, you can get this too. Purple Turtle Roofing, whether it's addressing leaks, storm damage, or general wear and tear, Purple Turtle Roofing is going to be there to deliver exceptional roof repair for your property. They're the leading expert in local residential roofing solutions. You need to call Dustin Foley and his team today at 877-PT-ROOF-5 for your free roof inspection. That's 877-787-6635 to schedule your appointment. One of their qualified employees will come out to your roof. They'll make sure you're prepared for all of life's storms. So we appreciate Dustin and his team being a part of the Joe Gaither Show. But what we're going to do today is talk about what we heard from head coach Kalen DeBoer, what we heard from offensive coordinator Nick Sheridan, and what we heard from defensive coordinator Kane Womack. You can watch all those press conferences right there on the BamaCentral YouTube channel. We are going to go through the things that stood out to us. We're also going to talk about the Florida State-Georgia Tech game just in a little bit of a philosophical from a philosophical standpoint. We're going to talk about the college football playoff, everything that Nick Saban said on College Game Day on Saturday, and then we're going to look at Western Kentucky, a familiar foe. A familiar foe comes to Tuscaloosa, a name that hasn't been said around town in a while, but TJ Finley was named the starter for the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers, and we'll talk about all of that. And as always, you can jump in on the show by leaving us a comment, a question, a query, or complaint on whatever social media machine you're watching us on, Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. So let's get right into it. We spent time in the Naylor Stone Media Room today, BamaCentral.com, and you can read all about it. Katie Wyndham has a great piece about quarterback Jalen Milroe and his growth in the offense and where we expect, where the coaches expect to see him right there at BamaCentral.com. So we spent time listening to, what was it? How was it? It was Nick Sheridan first. Nick Sheridan went about 8-9 minutes, and then Kane Womack spent about 20 minutes behind the podium. And then it was Kalen DeBoer. And what was the biggest takeaway? Look, we've heard from these guys so many times already through fall camp, and that's not a complaint, but it is a little bit to say, what else is there to talk about? I am grateful as always, to be there, but this is the only real media opportunity for the head coach and offensive and defensive coordinators this week. Tomorrow we'll hear from select assistants and some players, which will be great. Always the players are a lot of fun to talk to because you can kind of go in many different directions with those guys, and you have a lot more variety also with which players they end up giving you. But at this point, you're kind of sitting there like, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to talk about? How are we going to get ready for Western Kentucky? The biggest thing that stood out to me was the injury update on Jam Miller and Jaden Roberts. Coach Kalen DeBoer said he expected them to practice today and expected them to be a part of the game on Saturday, expected them to be full go. Then, as always, also, if you have seen the photo on social media with Jeremiah Alexander, his arm in a sling, maybe a little bit of a wrap on his hand, Coach Kalen DeBoer saying today that Jeremiah Alexander may be a little bit more questionable to get going back on the practice field. Says that his timeline is kind of is close, but doesn't look like he might be available for the first game. So, does that do anything too much to you and to your game plan? No, not really. You still got Geno Vandermark sitting there ready to go if Jaden Roberts cannot play, and you have a plethora of talent in the running back room if you need to give Jam Miller another week. But if you're ready to go ahead and throw them out there. Get them going. Let's get the pads popping against a different opponent. And this week's opponent is Western Kentucky, and we'll get into them. We'll get into our prediction about, what's it going to be. You're a 31.5-point favorite if you from an Alabama standpoint. And the total, if you're a gambler, 59.5 points. And we'll kind of predict that in just a little bit. But the biggest thing from the news conference today for me was about essentially the health of Jam Miller and Jaden Roberts. Now, the other issue, or the other kind of interesting thing that to me was there's a lot to be made about communication and the helmet communicators. And I think that these coaches have a real understanding, or at least they've talked about a real understanding of knowing, okay, you have this new tool where you can be inside the brain, you can be in the headset basically of Jalen Milroe and in the headset of Deontay Lawson, but you're going to have to be careful about how much information you're really overloading these kids in real-time action. You got to say they still have to figure it out themselves, but you can give them tips and tricks and like, okay, look for this coming up. Kalen DeBoer basically said we got to decide whether conversations are worth having over the headset or whether they're more valuable or going to be more effective lessons to be had on the sidelines. I found that to be a very interesting aspect of the press conference. The other real interesting aspect to me was two connections. All right, well, really three that kind of emerged. You have Kane Womack, who coached at South Alabama last year. All right, Kane Womack in South Alabama played against Texas State and lost the game to Texas State. What was it, 52-44 late in the year. Texas State got out to a big lead, and South Alabama kind of tried to come back but wasn't able to. Well, why is that significant? Well, the quarterback for Texas State was TJ Finley, and the quarterback for Texas State, TJ Finley, transferred to Western Kentucky. So you get a little bit of an element right there for Kane Womack trying to get a little revenge over TJ Finley. TJ Finley going 19 of 28 for 368 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception last year for Texas State, leading to 52-44 over South Alabama. So a little connection between defensive coordinator Kane Womack and TJ Finley already. And then secondly, Nick Sheridan. The shoe's been on the other foot for Nick Sheridan just a little bit. In 2012, Nick Sheridan was a part of the Western Kentucky coaching staff that came to Tuscaloosa. Now, I should have looked this game up as well, but I did in 2012. Alabama Western Kentucky. Let's see what that score was. It was a lot to a little. 35-0. Alabama beat Western Kentucky and Nick Sheridan while he was on the coaching staff that day. So you got some connections through the coaching staff to Western Kentucky and to some of the personnel that Alabama is going to be seeing on Saturday. But let's back up before we get into Western Kentucky, because we have a whole week to get into Western Kentucky, and I think that tomorrow we will be joined by Jake McMahon, student writer for Western Kentucky. Look, I was looking up beat writers for Western Kentucky, and not a whole lot was emerging. A lot of the information you're getting right now is from the Alabama side, so hopeful to get a little bit of a Western Kentucky perspective tomorrow from Jake McMahon, writer for the Western Kentucky student newspaper. We'll connect to him to get to see what the Hilltoppers kind of have aspirations for. But you look at them last year, they get beat really badly by Ohio State. Oh, we're backing up before we get into Western Kentucky. That's what we're doing. Florida State over the weekend, at week 0, right? All right, so week 0, you get Nick Saban for a couple hours on College Game Day, and really, really great to see Coach Saban out there. And he said a couple of different things that stood out to me, or a couple of different things that should be talking points for this week and really for this team. Namely, two big talking points. One, the biggest thing for this team, and we'll go right there. We'll go right there first, is Coach Saban talking about seeing Alabama's second scrimmage. There was what? It was a closed scrimmage. There was a lot less information coming out of the second scrimmage. What I heard was only about 250 people saw it. I think the first scrimmage was open to a bigger group of donors, a bigger group of supporters, a bigger group of boosters. So that's why there was more information coming out from the first scrimmage. Second scrimmage, I was told, or I've been, it's been whispered around that Alabama, there was only about 250 people in attendance for that second scrimmage. And so Nick Saban was one of them. And what did he reveal on College Game Day? He says that, a lot of my concerns for the Alabama defense have been quelled. Now, we heard, and we've talked about it before, Alabama's second scrimmage was very, very physical. And we talked about, that's why, Jaden Roberts ended up missing a couple of days and having to have surgery on his hand. That's why a couple of these running backs ended up in black uniforms last week. That's why, it was a physical scrimmage, and great. I think that was a good thing for Alabama. But Nick Saban said that Alabama's culture is the same as what he left it. I think that Alabama is out to prove a lot. That Nick Saban is gone, but the talent is still there. We talked about it last week with Tyler White, the 24/7 talent composite for the year that showed that Alabama is still the number one most talented team roster-wise, 1 to 85, even though Ohio State allegedly has spent $20 million building this roster that they've got. And obviously we know that they got Caleb Downs and they've got Quinshon Judkins from the SEC, and they've really loaded up trying to match what Michigan did last season. But I think this Alabama roster is going to be really, really impressive this year and really, really motivated. I think that the morning practice has served to fuel that motivation a little bit, like rise and grind. Not that the afternoon practice was a bad thing, but I think that everything is forward focused on proving people wrong. Let's check in with Wendell Hare. If Alabama plays like they should, it will be a blowout game against Western Kentucky, yes. But if the same Bama team that showed up against USF last year, then Western Kentucky could keep it close. Absolutely. I think the Hilltoppers have a lot of talent. We'll get into them in just a minute, but and whether Alabama will cover or not, what the game will look like. But Nick Saban basically talking about the Alabama culture being what it is. I think that Tyler Booker and Malachi Moore, I think some of these team leaders have taken a real ownership of the team. Jalen Milroe, Deontay Lawson, Tim Keenan, and the like have taken a real ownership of the team and made sure that, okay, Coach Saban is gone, and we did lose some guys on the transfer portal, but you hear the same messaging. Maybe Coach Kalen DeBoer and his mindset, his player first, his player leader mindset is really combining well with the roster and with the leaders that Alabama has. We'll see how it turns out, but I think that Coach Saban kind of not walked back. Obviously, he stuck with his Georgia prediction to win the SEC, and he stuck with the Georgia-Texas SEC championship game prediction. But he did let on over the weekend. We talked about him letting on the rat poison. He furthered that theory a couple of different times, saying that Alabama still is a really, really good team. And so I think it was fun to hear from Nick Saban on College Game Day. But I think that he gave a lot of sneaky confidence to Alabama fans, which was really fun to really enjoy. Now, the other thing that people were up in arms about was the transfer portal, and he said, when I retired, there were coaches camping out in Tuscaloosa. I don't know if that was exactly the case, if that's a little exaggerated or not. But just kind of interesting to hear his perspective, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Look, I haven't always been a college game day watcher, but I think that I will make it part of my Saturdays going forward as long as Coach Saban is on. So you let me know what you thought of Coach Saban on college game day in the comments if you want to keep hearing him or not, or if you talk too much for your liking. Obviously, he and Pat McAfee have a very interesting dynamic. I think he's always looking at Pat McAfee like, what in the bleep are you thinking, sir? So it's a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun watching Coach Saban. Now, Coach Saban admitted and talked about the SEC this year. We talked about it last week, the SEC's unbalanced scheduling and how it's going to create obviously some of these tiebreakers are going to come into play. He talked about Missouri having the easiest path to the SEC championship game. So we'll see how that plays out for Missouri. But it's very obvious that something needs to be changed with the SEC scheduling. I think that Coach Saban was kind of letting on to a little bit of that. There's still some tweaking to be had. But I really enjoyed Coach Saban. Wendell continues. If Alabama makes it to a national championship, win it or lose it, would still be a huge success. That's a really good point. Coach Saban had Alabama in his college football playoff as well as Kirk Herbstreit. But who were the other two? Desmond Howard did not. Right? Yeah, Desmond Howard did not. And there was another pundit on the stage that did not. But Coach Saban, I think that if you're an Alabama fan and if you're watching this and you're getting ready for the season, you're thinking, like, what should be fair? And we've done this a bunch of different times. I think you should expect to make the college football playoff. Anything more than that, it should be a bonus. If you get into the SEC championship game in the process and win it, that's a bonus. Now, I think if you get into the SEC championship game, losing it wouldn't be terrible, but it's kind of a waste. If you get on in there and playing it, you're already taking that toll on your body. So you might as well go ahead and win it. But I think that for an Alabama fan, Wendell, the expectation should be make the college football playoff, and from there, everything else is a bonus. Even if you're a high seed, an 11 seed, a 10 seed, a 9 seed, I think that you should be happy with Kalen DeBoer's first year if you make the college football playoff. Wendell continues. Saban on game day was impressive. The way he breaks his opinions down makes me want to watch it more and more. Exactly. I think they did. They hit a big old home run, at least for the people in Alabama, but they hit a big old home run with Coach Saban on college game day. Let's see. Said the college football. Yeah, college football playoff or bust. I put up on my own Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter at Joe Gaither 6, the current college football playoff after week 0, Florida State losing. Only 6 FBS teams have played a game so far. So I filled in my college football playoff ballot with the 6 teams that have played a game. Obviously, Georgia Tech being the number 1 seed, Hawaii being the 2 seed. Nobody's the 3 or 4 because only 2 conferences played. The Mountain West and the ACC were the only 2 conferences to have games played. So the 3 and the 4 seed are blank. SMU barely beating Nevada, getting the 5. Florida State, yeah, you lost, but you had the best loss of the weekend. Losing to Georgia Tech is my 6. Nevada, you gave SMU a run for your money, is 7. And New Mexico, you lost to, goodness gracious, you lost to an FCS school, Montana State, so you get the lowest seed available. We'll continue to update the college football playoff poll every time there's games. So Thursday night, we'll update those again, and we'll see. Obviously, if you haven't played, then you can't be in it. So that's why there's some blanks, and that's why there's some funny rankings right now. We got to get some more games. We got to get some more conferences to have participated. But week 0, Florida State, you go over to Ireland, and Georgia Tech basically takes you into the pain cave. Look, Florida State's a better football team than Georgia Tech. They simply are. Florida State is a better football team than Georgia Tech. But what happened on Saturday was Georgia Tech said, we know who we are. We know that we have the capability of being tougher than you. We know that we can mix up our game plan. We can mix up our play calling. We can mix up your eyes. And, oh, by the way, while you're thinking just a little too much, we're also punching you in the nose every single snap, offensively or defensively. We're keeping everything just a little bit different every other snap. We're changing things brings up Owen Haynes King. He's a badass runner as well. And so really Georgia Tech took it to Florida State. I know a lot of people were complaining about DJ Uiagalelei, and he was not good, but he wasn't horrible. My thoughts were the Florida State offensive and defensive lines got their tails kicked, got their tails absolutely whipped. Now, what are you going to do? You're a quarterback. You're taking the snap and the pass rush is in your face. The pass rush is in your lap. You're not getting a very good running game either because you're getting whooped up front. And, by the way, nobody's winning on the outside. So who are you really throwing it to? Now, they did convert a couple of those fourth downs late in the game to make it interesting and stay with them. But Georgia Tech kicked their butt the entire game. Now, this leads to the Alabama connection. You got 5 guys who transferred to Florida State, right? And obviously, you can go through the college football playoff stuff as well if you want to last year. But the SEC champion was always going to get in last year. And I don't really think that the Orange Bowl really mattered at all. And I don't really think that the 60-something, 66-3, or 60, whatever it was that Georgia put on Florida State is indicative of anything. I think that Georgia was just angry, and I think Florida State didn't care, and half their team didn't play. What happened on Saturday was a bit different. Embarrassing if you're a Florida State fan, because I do think skill-wise, talent-wise, you're better than Georgia Tech. But what were you working on all year? What were you working on all summer? Were you just kind of still in this "we got robbed" mindset? What were you working on all summer? Basically, Georgia Tech said, we don't mind physicality on Saturday, and Florida State shot away from it. But the Alabama connection, you got those 5 guys that transferred from Alabama to Florida State. And, okay, whatever, they lost. I thought it was a little bit unbecoming of the Alabama fans that I saw on social media to basically go out and bash the 5 guys that transferred to Florida State. Or you jumped in the transfer portal and you went to Florida State and you lost. I think that it was unbecoming of the Alabama fans to do that, because look at the 5 guys who transferred and think about where they would be on this roster right now. Obviously, you got the 2 biggest names that did contribute on Saturday. Roydell Williams scored himself a touchdown, had himself like 30 yards receiving, had himself like 50 yards or so on the ground. And great, Roydell Williams got some action. And then you saw Malik Benson on the outside playing wide receiver. And he got, 30, 40, 50 yards receiving on 4 catches. So he led Florida State in receiving. But, okay, where would they be at Alabama? Where would they be? They'd be sitting on the bench. Roydell Williams obviously had a good year last year, but at this point, with the talent in the backfield, he's sitting there looking up at Richard Young. You still got all 3 running backs that are starting for Alabama, that are in the starting rotation right now for Alabama, that would be ahead of Roydell Williams, in my estimation. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I would slice it. Okay, Malik Benson. Malik Benson had an okay year last year. And if you listen to the show last summer, I was high, very, very high on Malik Benson. I thought he was going to be a great wide receiver. I thought he was going to be the next Jameson Williams, just a speed demon. But didn't really pan out, obviously. I don't know where Malik Benson would be in this wide receiver corps. He wouldn't be ahead of Jeremy Bernard. He wouldn't be ahead of Ryan Williams. He wouldn't be ahead of Kobe Prentice. He wouldn't be ahead of Kendrick Law. No. Where would he be? All right, think about that for those 2 guys. And then you got guys who didn't even play, right? Okay, you got TJ Ferguson, Terrence Ferguson, transferred out and transferred to Florida State, didn't make it on the participation chart. Where would he be? Would he be sitting there battling Geno Vandermark for first player off the bench for the interior offensive line? Probably. That's probably where he'd be. And that'd be a fine place. Obviously, Alabama needed somebody, and that's why they got Geno Vandermark. And, thank goodness for him. But where would Terrence Ferguson be? He'd be sitting there backing up. He'd be battling Geno Vandermark for that position. Or had you had him, you wouldn't have gone in the transfer portal to get Geno Vandermark. Okay, all right, but you'd still be backing up. You wouldn't have beaten out Jaden Roberts. You wouldn't be beating out Tyler Booker. And you wouldn't be beating out Parker Brailsford. No disrespect. You'd still be backing back. You should be on the bench. And so you go to Florida State for a fresh start, whatever. All right, great. then you look on the defensive side. You got two guys on the defensive side, Earl Little and Sean Murphy. Sean Murphy didn't make it on the participation chart. Would he be on the field right here in Tuscaloosa? No. You still got Deontay Lawson, Jad Campbell, and Justin Jefferson. And boom, Justin Okoronkwo seems like a bad son of a gun coming all the way from Germany as a true freshman, right? Sitting right there ready to step things up. And Jeremiah Alexander seems like he's molding into the role a little bit. You'd be lost in the shuffle if you're Sean Murphy. Only guy that you're kind of maybe missing just a little is Earl Little Jr. But Earl Little Jr. gets a little playing time on Saturday, gets one tackle, and is kind of a backup rotational piece. And that's exactly what he'd be in this secondary. You look, Damani Jackson still starts over him. You look at Earl Little Jr. and he'd be in that mix with Zabian Brown, with Deshaun Jones. Okay, you miss Earl Little just a teensy bit. But you think about these guys, it's unbecoming to, the grass isn't always greener. Those guys, look, they're better off where they are. Alabama's better off where they are as well. So everybody, all is well that ends well. Obviously, that doesn't end well for Florida State, losing over the weekend to Georgia Tech and getting off to the wrong foot. I think it's always tough to be week 0 because week 0 now, like obviously Georgia Tech and Florida State was the marquee game, and here we are on Monday talking about it. Would we have talked about that matchup if it was week 3 or 4 buried on the slate of games? Probably not. But Florida State loses, and they are the talk of the town until college football kicks off again on Thursday, and then obviously Alabama kicks off on Saturday. All right, so let's keep things going, but I want to talk to you first. Before we keep things going, we're going to move into Western Kentucky talk. But before we do it, we need to tell you about Derek Daniel and State Farm. You can call them today at 205-758-3391 for all your home, life, and auto insurance needs. They're going to take care of you, Red, Reese, or Victoria. You're going to pick up the phone. They're going to say, hey, how you doing? They're going to understand your needs. They're going to get you the right insurance. They're going to get you the right rates and make sure that you're properly covered for all of your needs, whether you're trying to insure your kid who's getting their first time car, or whether you're trying to change cars, you just sold a car, you're buying a car, whatever you need to do, your home, life, and auto insurance can be taken care of by Derek Daniel, and they're right up the road from me. They're like a mile away. So they're right off McFarland Boulevard. You're going to McFarland Boulevard. It's 4604 Highway 69 North in Northport, just past the Tiger Rock on the left. They'll be happy to take care of you. Check them out online at agentderekdaniel.com or give them a call at 205-758-3391. All right, let's talk about Western Kentucky, and let's talk about what Alabama is really going to be finding on Saturday. All right, 6 o'clock in Bryant-Denny Stadium, on Saban Field in Bryant-Denny Stadium. Excuse me, we want to be proper there, right? On Saban Field in Bryant-Denny Stadium, and I'll be in there about 3, and it's going to be great, and I cannot wait for it. Oh, my goodness, I cannot wait for it. Oh, thank you so much that I get to do that. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Alabama opens up a new era, the Kalen DeBoer era. You look at the line, a lot of you guys are gamblers. I am not going to be laying any money on this, but I will pretend like I have $100, and I will give you my best advice to do so with it. All right. You look at what Western Kentucky did last year. You look at what Alabama has done in openers. I remember last year against Middle Tennessee, I said, okay, Alabama's going to win big, but Middle Tennessee's going to cover. Lost that bet. Hypothetical bet. I'm putting everything in quotation marks because, again, I hate losing money, so I don't gamble. But I do chalk it up and try to keep my record as if I gambled because, it's fun that way. So, Alabama, 31.5-point favorite against Western Kentucky. You've got a team that has basically had winning records year in and year out under this coach, under the current coach. They've been pretty good, right? And they're going to come in and probably score a little bit of points. I wrote down 59-23. Alabama's going to be playing familiar foe, TJ Finley. TJ Finley, all right, we already went over TJ Finley tonight. The last time TJ Finley played Kane Womack, 368 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception, 52-44. Whew. Loss for Kane Womack. He's got to get his lick back. But Alabama's done traditionally pretty well against TJ Finley in 2020, beating the LSU Tigers 55-17 down there in Death Valley. TJ Finley goes 14 of 28, 144 yards, 1 touchdown. Not good, right? He's he negative 12 yards, so he got sacked a bunch of times as well. Obviously, that 2020 team was unstoppable. One of college football's greatest teams ever, really. So TJ Finley, tough night down there in Death Valley at LSU as a freshman, right? So good night for Alabama. All right, but in 2021, he's transferred to Auburn. 17 of 26, 137 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. So, again, really low yardage, mediocre completion percentage, but Alabama beats Auburn. Y'all all remember it, 24-22, the 4 overtime game, the little John Mechie stab route. John Mechie basically goes in on a slant and stabs back to the outside. Alabama wins. And goodness gracious, oh shoot, Ja'Cory Brooks over the shoulder to tie the game, something like 90 yards, 80 something yards in 30 seconds or so. Bryce Young being magical, but TJ Finley not that good either in that game. So Alabama had a lot of success against TJ Finley. I think that it's going to be an okay game for Alabama's defense. I think there's going to be a lot of highs, but I think there's going to be some lows as well. TJ Finley last year at Texas State. So he transfers from Auburn. He goes to Texas State. He goes 3,400 yards and 24 touchdowns. Not bad. 5 touchdowns on the ground. Not bad. Then he transfers to Western Kentucky. So now he's here, and he's going to play Alabama again. Third time with his third different school. So it's going to be pretty interesting there. I think that Alabama is going to give up some points defensively. But I think that Alabama's offense is going to be electric. I think it's going to be your first shot at seeing Alabama really just fly up and down the field. Spread teams so wide. I mean, the thing about it is Alabama's athletes are still top notch. And so all you got to do is get them out into space, whether it's Jalen Milroe, whether it's Justice Haynes, Jam Miller, whether it's Kendrick Law or Jeremy Bernard. You just got to create space for these guys and let them rumble down the field, let them fly down the field, whatever their particular style is. I think that you're just going to have to get the ball to these guys out in space. And oh my gosh, I think the offense is going to fly up and down the field. But defensively, I think there's going to be a little bit of struggle. As Kane Womack talked about it today. He said that the defense is going to give some things up. You're just going to have to bear with them, okay? Last year against Middle Tennessee, I think it was they only gave up 10? Was that what it was? I think it was 59-10, if I remember correctly. Obviously, I should have taken that note down, but blew out the Blue Raiders right there. And Jalen Milroe's first start, he fumbled the football. He fumbled a bad snap. Obviously, that was a precursor to what was to come for the rest of the year. He fumbled a bad snap, and he ran it in for a big old 30-something yard touchdown to get the scoring started. And Alabama did cover against the MTSU Blue Raiders. But for Alabama fans on Saturday night, I think they're going to see an offense that is the start of something that's very special. And not just special because of the personnel that Alabama has right now. I think that's a part of it. But a special because of what Kalen DeBoer and Nick Sheridan and Jamarcus Shepard are going to do as a trio as far as mixing up plays, mixing up concepts, putting defenses into conflict, and putting Alabama's playmakers into positions that it's really, really easy for them to succeed. And not easy like it is going to be easy, but easy is when, there's a clear advantage here where, okay, they've made a step, they've created a one-on-one. I think that Nick Sheridan and Kalen DeBoer and Jamarcus Shepard are going to be really, really good at creating and taking advantage of space. And you look at the athletes that Alabama has recruited and will recruit in the future. I think this is going to be the start of something very, very special. But defensively, I encourage you to be patient, because I think that there's going to be a lot of big plays. I think you're going to get a lot of sacks. I think you're going to get a lot of negative plays. You're going to get a lot of batted balls at the line of scrimmage. I think you're going to get some pick sixes throughout the year. Maybe not all on Saturday night, but throughout the year, there's going to be a lot of big plays. But I think that there's going to be a small tendency to have some busts as well. And not busts because the players are bad, but maybe a little miscommunication here or there throughout the year where, I'm the nose guard and I thought I had the A gap where I really was in the B gap, or I thought I was in, certain things. I think there's going to be certain just little things, not all the time. Or I think that there's going to be a little bit of just elemental things that allow opposing offenses to make big plays. I don't think that opposing offenses will have success marching the field on Alabama. But I do think that there will be opportunities to take advantage of small cracks. And if if there are enough of those in a game, and Alabama struggles offensively, then you might have a ball game. And there's going to be a couple instances this season where I think that that's going to be the case. And namely against Georgia, against Missouri, against Tennessee, I think that there's going to be some of those games where, the big playability is going to be a real big danger the entire game for the Alabama defense. But on the flip side, you also could end up sacking Nico for a loss. Oh, goodness gracious. I did it with my friend so many times. Iamaleava. There it is. Nico Iamaleava. His name is a mouthful. Nico Iamaleava. Alabama sacks him for a big loss, but he's going to have a tendency to have a big play. I think Alabama's defense is going to kind of be boom or bust. And from an Alabama standpoint, you're just going to have to be patient with that and realize that in modern football, modern offense, with the offense that Alabama is going to be fielding, the consistency and the playmaking ability, I think that you're just going to have to be used to a score that looks like 59-23 on Saturday night. That's going to be my prediction right now. I'm feeling like that's kind of my gut feeling. I wouldn't be surprised with a 49-17, something in that range. Just take it down a notch by just a little bit. But I think that Alabama's going to get a lot of big plays, offensively and defensively. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun to be there in Bryant-Denny Stadium that night. So if you're gambling, that does cover the spread. Spread's 31.5. I got it at 36 right there. And if you're playing the over-under looks like, looks like taking candy from a baby, 59.5, right? So even at 49-17, that's still 66. You're playing the over all day long if you're in my boat. Now, granted, there might be something I don't see. Maybe the Alabama defense is going to be a lot better than I'm saying. Maybe there won't be any cracks. And if there won't, then it might be that 56-59 range. And it might be a real big challenge. We might be eating our words next Monday. But that's kind of how I see the game right now. You look at Western Kentucky and their skill position players. They've got they're going to have Dalvin Smith and Eaton Messer. Both those guys having pretty decent years last year. 50 catches for Dalvin Smith, 42 for Messer, 513 yards to 484 respectively. And so I think that you've got a penchant for the Western Kentucky offense to score some points. They bring in Keyshawn Johnson from Alabama State. He had 61 catches last year, 829 yards and 7 touchdowns. And then they bring in from Auburn, Coy Moore. You guys are all familiar with him. And what's interesting, Coy Moore, wide receiver from Auburn and LSU, played with TJ Finley in both stops. So he and TJ Finley both on their third team together. So they've got skill position players. Western Kentucky. It's going to be up to Alabama's defense to be consistent. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing to look for. What can Alabama do? They need to pay attention to what happened in week 0 and see that Florida State got beat, was a 10-point favorite. And you saw Montana State beat Nevada. That was a big old favorite Montana State beat New Mexico State. Yeah, that was a big old favorite for New Mexico State as well. Nevada almost beat SMU. SMU was like a 27-point favorite and almost got beat. And so, yeah, you see the game plan. You see the spread, 31.5, and you see, okay, Alabama, you should cakewalk over Western Kentucky, but you've got to get a little bit of Georgia Tech in you. You got to get a little nasty in you because, while, yes, Florida State was better than Georgia Tech this past weekend, and they will be better than them for the entire year. Georgia Tech was nastier. Georgia Tech embraced who they are. They embraced the physicality that is football. And so for Tyler Booker and for Tim Smith and for Tim Keenan and the like, for Parker Brailsford and Jaden Roberts, you guys got to get a little bit nasty. And if that's what happens with this Alabama team, then I think the sky's the limit. And yeah, we're talking about college football playoff should be the expectation. And I think it is your expectation this year. But if you get a little nasty in you, and the more nasty you're able to develop up front on this team, I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch for us at BamaCentral.com. And we appreciate everybody who is jumping in and watching us on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central, on the Bama Central YouTube channel. We're going to get out of here for the week, for the day. We'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to be talking to several assistant coaches is what we think is what the plan is, according to the sheet, a couple assistant coaches and a couple players as well. I want to tell you about as you're making plans to come to Tuscaloosa this weekend, you're making your plans to be here for the Western Kentucky game. It's the home opener. It's your first chance to come check on your freshman that you just left 2 weeks ago. You're looking for something to do, Druid City Music Hall, druidcitymusichall.com. It is the premier place for live music on the Strip. Yeah, you know the Strip is kind of where a lot of the students hang out. And if you're a student watching this, we appreciate you guys very, very much for checking us out. But the Strip is also, if you're looking for a place to be a part of the Strip but not really in it, go see a concert right at Druid City Music Hall. They've got a lot of great acts coming up this week. Thursday, Tucker Wetmore is going to be there. Friday, Knox is going to be there. So you got 2 big concerts on the night, on the weekend before the game. Obviously, you don't want to have a concert on Saturday going up against the game, but on Thursday and Friday, big concerts over at Druid City Music Hall, and you can get your tickets at druidcitymusichall.com. We're going to get out of here for the day. Tomorrow we'll talk to players and assistants, and we'll have another show. We'll talk to our reporter from Western Kentucky, Jake McMahon. We'll work out a time to get on with him to find out more in depth about the Hilltoppers, what they've been up to during fall camp, and what their expectations are this 2024 season. I so appreciate you guys for watching us on the Bama Central YouTube channel or listening to us on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com.